Okay. All right, guys. I guess the topic of today's Zoom meeting is fall food plots. Yeah, we're right here at the end of August. I guess for a lot of you guys that, have listened to some of my Zoom meetings, I'm from central Pennsylvania and so to the Northeast. So it's obviously we're at a point now where any food plots that we're wrapping up at this point here in the Northeast, you're pretty much going to be really focused heavily on probably cereal grains, like wheat and oats and winter rye, maybe a couple little bit of annual clovers. My personal favorite that I like to use in fall food plots is crimson clover. It's pretty much a bulletproof clover. Um, Grows really fast. Puts on a lot of tonnage for the next spring. Obviously, it's going to seed out and whatnot, and it's going to die. Then that's why it's called an annual clover. It's not a perennial. Brassicas here in the Northeast are pretty much going to be the one that you're most limited to right now. Might be a radish at the moment because it is the fastest growing brassicas out of any of them. So, you roughly need about 25 to 40 days for stuff like that to pop up and grow and, get some leafy tonnage and maybe a little bit of bulb going on. But that's pretty much about it right now here in the Northeast. But normally, when I like to start out my fall food plots at the end of July, beginning of August for the Northeast, um, especially the brassicas. I think it's a myth that guys tell you, hey, you can't mix cereal grains in with your brassicas right away, or you can't mix in your clovers in with your brassicas. I totally disagree. I like to mix all them together. But now what I'm finding out is that brassicas planted early, or that 60 to 70 day time frame is what I'm aiming for our brassicas to grow up, because obviously they're going to put more tonnage on, uh, more bulbs, more leaves, and that's what I like for especially our area. And in central Pennsylvania, our winters are harder on the deer. I know my family has mountain ground, so there's once the crops are cut off below us in the farmland, there's really not much for a white-tailed deer at that point anymore. So um, I like to get them in early so it really produces a lot of tonnage, and then about 3 or 4 weeks after I plant my brassicas, I'll mix in the cereal grains. But for a lot of my clients, I mix in the cereal grains and the brassicas and the crimson clover all together, and I plant it with my no-till drill. So that's kind of how I start off. But and we'll get to the southern part of the country here yet too as I start talking a little bit more here. But like I said, your main species that you're going to plant for a fall food plot are winter rye, winter wheat, oats, your annual clovers, and your brassicas. And brassicas is just a family of different species within the brassicas. So you have purple top turnip, you have radishes, you have kale, you have rape, you have collards, you have rutabaga, which that's another good thing that I'm going to talk about too as well. That's something kind of new that hopefully will be talked about more widely in the industry at some point. But my first topic is site selection. So with the site selection, I always have a hunting strategy to it. So how are the winds going to prevail at that spot? Is it close to bedding? Can I access it without spooking deer if there is deer feeding on the plot? So on and so forth. Does it get a lot of sunlight? These are all different questions that you're going to have to ask. Is it way back in the timber that you can't get a lot of big equipment into to do it? Is it a site where it's ag land where you have, you know, good equipment and it's close by and you can get to it and make it the best that you possibly can? Those are things that you gotta think about when you're putting in your fall food plots, even any food plots in general. So with site selection, there's weeds you gotta mow. You got to use herbicide to kill off what's there. And that's how you're going to prep it. And, I'm a guy uh, that really goes towards the no-till process of things. The less you can disturb the soil, the better. I am pretty much getting closer and closer to being anti, disking soil. Um, all it does is bring more weed seeds up. You got heavy rains and stuff like that. There's a good chance it washes all the topsoil away. Um, and then you're disturbing a lot of the microbes and stuff in there and whatnot, killing them off. You're killing earthworms, which put natural fertilizer in the soil, make natural channels in the soil for roots to follow, water to get down in and percolate. So then what happens if you till soil, a lot of times you get heavy rains, it'll lay stagnant on top for days at a time. No-till soil won't do that. You won't see any of that happen because you're not disturbing the soil profile. It allows it to that water to work its way down through and percolate the way it should. So that's kind of that's how I'm going to kind of start here with the fall food plots as well. But I'm not against if you're clearing land and whatnot and you're pushing stuff off. Obviously, soil's going to be disturbed right off the way, prepping the site. A lot of times too with my clients and whatnot, if it's a brand new site, we might have to go in and till up the soil at first, but then we're going to slowly start working on our no-till system. But with a no-till system, you need lots of rain and you're going to have to use herbicide here and there. That's just the way it is. Occasionally to stop the different weeds that are coming up too, because even in a no-till system, there's still weeds, but there's not the magnitude like there is when you're disking. So then we're going to kind of go into the fact of, okay, what should I use to feed the soil? Should I use granular fertilizer? Should I use liquid fertilizer? Should I use bag pelletized lime? Should I use liquid lime? And you know what? Just through trial and error and working on different people's properties over the years and working on our properties over the years, I found out that obviously you're going to pay a lot more now than what you did 10 years ago for bagged fertilizer and bagged pelletized lime. So if you have a site that's remote and you don't have a lot of tools and you don't have a real big budget, then what I'm going to recommend to you guys is going the liquid route, which I do the liquid route too. I mean, we're blue collar people. We're not filthy rich and we need to, have ways of getting stuff that's, reasonable, that's going to stretch our dollars. So, and that's why I'm going to tell you guys some of the things that I found out just through trial and error, me doing things. But I've been really rolling towards the liquid form of things because then you don't have to carry hundreds and hundreds of pounds of bags of fertilizer and lime to your site anymore. So all it takes is a UTV sprayer on a four-wheeler or a Polaris Ranger or whatever it is on a tractor if you can get back to the sites and whatnot. But you can put in your liquid lime and liquid fertilizers in your sprayer and treat the sites that way. Even if it's a backpack sprayer, you got a small food plot, it's like a 16th of an acre little kill plot that's back in the woods. You cut some trees down, you blow the leaves off, you get rid of the vegetation, you create a nice seed bed. Um, that's a good way of just killing multiple birds with one stone right there and then, because then you don't have to constantly keep going back all the time with more fertilizer or more lime. So, and what I'll have to, put a post up then on Cervicide then of some of the different products that I use a lot. I just found out this product online, that the liquid lime product, calcium carbonate product, that's what you want, because that's going to move your pH a lot quicker in your soil than pelletized lime or even ag lime. So I tried this year liquid lime, and I can't believe how much it made our plants grow up like crazy. And it really helps so that it rained too as well. But a 2.5 gallon jug of liquid lime that I got from this one website was only $30. So I mean, compared to buying skids of lime that are $300, $400, $500 a skid. So and that 2.5 gallon jug of liquid lime is equivalent to 2,000 pounds of ag lime. So, do the math here, people. I mean, it's pretty obvious what the selection could be to a lot of people. And obviously you can do that with liquid fertilizers too. I have a couple different liquid fertilizers that you can spray foliarly right on the plants, on the leaves, and the leaves of those plants will soak it up and whatnot. Or you can, I still use a little bit of pelletized fertilizer. I'm not against that at all. But the fertilizer I chose, and tried over the years with fall food plots because of our brassicas. The brassicas need a lot of nitrogen. So I thought, everybody says on YouTube, urea, urea, urea. You have to get that 4600 fertilizer. So, when you start doing your research on urea, it's very volatile. So when you spread it on the ground and all of a sudden you thought that rain was coming, now it lays out there for, a day, 2, 3 days without rain, it can evaporate. And then you lost, I mean, I think you can lose up to, 80, 90% of that nitrogen just going up into the air right off the get-go. Don't quote me on those percentages. I don't know, but I have done it before over the years and found out, and then your plants don't look good at all because they're only getting so much of it. So what I've been finding out is the it's not new fertilizer by any means. It's more so for gardening and yards and stuff like that. I'm actually using ammonium sulfate on my fall food plots now. Um, it's still a nitrogen fertilizer. It's 2100. You can get 2400. You don't want any P and K in it at all. And it has sulfur in it too, which is one of the most limiting resources to a lot of your fall food plots, even your summer food plots, which we can get into that next time around when spring comes around. But the ammonium sulfate is a slow release fertilizer. So the product I get can help feed your plants for up to 3 months. So that's pretty awesome to me because we're only doing 2.5 months of growing season for our fall food plots. So that's going to take care of it. You don't even have to go back and reapply fertilizer again. So if you put down the recommended rate on that food plot. So, and it's not volatile. So you can let it sit out on the ground and over time, it's going to slowly leach into the ground and it's going to stay in that ground for up to 3 months. And then those plants can uptake it. So that is perfect for our turnips and our radishes, our cereal grains like wheat and rye and oats, because all those guys love nitrogen and it's constantly available to them all the time. So those are kind of the different things. Obviously, like I said, it depends on your site. You might have guys that call in a lime truck or a fertilizer truck because they have roads going into their property that are real nice that the lime truck can come in and fertilizer truck can hit it all and then you're done. But you got guys like me and other people that have real deep woods properties and all that stuff I mean, we're very blessed. I still have a tractor and a no-till drill and stuff, and different sprayers and all that, but it's still a lot harder work. It's, multiple weeks of getting this stuff done. So whatever can, help the process out for you guys, the better. And I think liquid is definitely a good alternative. And choose fertilizers that are going to last longer in the soil because then you don't have to go back and treat them again. So those are a couple things I covered. And also, guys, sorry about this. I skipped over this. When I put down that ammonium sulfate on my fall food plots, I'm mixing the ammonium sulfate and triple 19 together. So the triple 19 is a starter fertilizer. So that's when it's initially going to feed your plants for a couple weeks. And then that ammonium sulfate is going to take over right after that. So that's the mixture I found out that works really, really good for me. Every once in a while, I do mix in urea, but always make sure there's rain in the forecast. Um, Rain is the key for all things to grow. So, um, don't go prepare your food plots over a weekend just because you have time and then you look at the forecast and there's no rain for like 2 or 3 weeks. That's wasting your time and your money putting in the ground. So wait for that rain to be, a day or two away or even 3 days away. So make sure, especially with the no-till system, make sure there is good rain in the forecast. So then we're going to talk about some different herbicides I like to use. Obviously, I'm kind of bouncing around here. I have a bunch of different notes here, but obviously your main herbicides that you're going to be using, obviously glyphosate, or everybody knows is Roundup. That's a good burn down application for any spots to prep up your fall food plots. A lot of times, if you have a lot of broadleaves in your plots and all that you want to prep up, you can mix in a little bit of 2,4-D in with your glyphosate. They're compatible herbicides. So that's a good choice for a burn down, but you're gonna have to wait about a week or two because 2,4-D is residual in the soil. So if you go to plant your brassicas literally, 2 or 3 days after the burn down, a lot of times those brassicas are gonna uptake the 2,4-D, and that will kill um, your brassicas because they are a broadleaf plant. So stay away from clover clover plantings in the fall when using 2,4-D for a little while, and your brassicas. But your wheat and your winter rye and your oats, that'll be fine because they're a grass. So you'll be fine that way. And then I'm gonna tell you guys about two other products, herbicides I like to use to maintain my fall food plots if you do have to go back and they do get a little weedy. So let's say you have a whole brassica plot. It's grown real awesome, and all of a sudden you got a bunch of grass coming up in it. You got stilt grass, you got fescue, you got Timothy, orchard grass, whatever it is. If it's a grass, you want to use clethodim. That is a grass selective herbicide. Another name for it is post. Um, it will not harm the brassicas, but it will kill off the grasses. So if you have wheat and rye and oats growing up in your brassicas, you don't want to use clethodim because that will kill your cereal grains because they are a grass. Um, Another one here that I have down is Buterac 200. It's a form of 2,4-D, but it's a different form of it. It's 2,4-DB is what it's called. It's meant to be sprayed on clovers. So let's say you do a perennial clover plot in the fall. A lot of times that's a good idea because you got less weed pressure. You got more rains coming in. You want to plant your annual clovers. Let's say you just want to do all cereal grains and annual clovers in your fall food plots. Well, Buterac 200 is fine to use on clover. They designed it that it won't kill the clover, but it'll kill all the other broadleaves, and it won't harm any grasses. It's meant to kill broadleaves. That's why it's still the form of 2,4-D. So if you want to maintain your cereal grain plots or your fall food plots that consist of clover, and they got a little bit of weed pressure, that's the broadleaves, Buterac 200 is a good thing to use on that. So I'm going to kind of go back to seed selection again because this honestly depends on your soil, and obviously the timing and stuff like that. For a lot of guys with poor rocky soil, especially here in the Northeast, or obviously in the South too, with sandy soils and stuff like that. Um, Obviously within the South here, you have a lot more growing time and a lot more opportunity than what we do here in the Northeast. So a lot of guys are starting to think about doing fall food plots here in the beginning of September here down south. I would probably wait till about mid-September in the south for sure, but your mind is starting to gear towards doing stuff here in the south. But in the Northeast, especially for poor sites, I like to do a lot of wheat and winter rye and crimson clover. It seems like those three seem to do very well in poor conditions, and deer really like it. They're not, I mean, it can take a beating with browse and just keep coming back. And then you're going to have a flush of a lot of good green growth in the spring yet too for those buck that are, growing their velvet, good spot for turkeys because it's really bringing in the insects. And especially you guys out there that are doing the no-till stuff, you let your wheat and rye come up and your clovers mature, you can go in and you can roll it down with a lawn roller or a crimper, or you can weed whack it down, and you just made an awesome mulch layer that's going to feed your soil, suppress weeds, and then you can broadcast or no-till drill wherever you're doing with a summer blend right into it. So just gear your fall food plots sometimes for what you're going to be planting in the summer then, or spring or summer the following year. Don't ever forget that. So, but like I said, obviously my seed selection, my go-to blend that I've been using now for a couple years is from AccuForage. It's called Fall Frenzy. So obviously you guys can look them up. They're partners now with Cervicide and whatnot, have been for a couple years now. And that
Yeah,
product
good, good
seems
company.
seems to be yeah, Justin. Yeah, that product has really grown good for us over the last couple of years. And obviously, I'm a dealer for them and whatnot. So I use a lot of their seed on my clients' properties too. So really pushing their name out there, and they have good products. But I like mixing in Crimson Clover in with the Fall Frenzy that I use. I'm starting to tinker around with a new clover. Well, it's kind of newer to me because I haven't used it too much, but Balanza fixation clover, because I'm more of the no-till process. I want plants that are going to create a lot of biomass, obviously for deer to eat, but also create a lot of biomass that I'm feeding soil, suppressing weeds that I don't have to till the soil year after year. And of course, we're helping our pollinators out through those clovers with those clover heads in the spring. So and then like I said, the last thing that I'm going to cover here with the seed selection, winter rye. I can't tell you how much that cereal grain has saved us numerous times with fall food plots. So let's just say you're the real hard blue collar working guy, and you really want to get stuff done, but things just keep getting in the way and getting in the way and getting in the way. So especially like us up here in the Northeast, um, beginning of September here, even all the way into early October, you can still get winter rye in. But don't be just, I mean, if you have an acre plot, just don't be throwing out 50 pounds. You're going to have to get 300 pounds of winter rye, which it's not too expensive. You're probably looking, I mean, 50-pound bag, you're probably looking at 20, $22 a bag. So, wide range that it might be a hair more, might be a hair less where you guys live, depending where you're at in the country. But if you really want to get something good and green growing, that stuff grows in the back of the bed of my truck, for God's sakes. I mean, it's really a bulletproof seed. And as soon as it gets any hint of moisture, man, it is sprouting like crazy. So if that's a last minute thing for anybody to be doing, winter rye is definitely one of them. But let's go to the south here again too a little bit more. As of right now, obviously people are thinking about right now in the South, your brassica plantings, because they're different time frames. So we're kind of wrapping things up here in the Northeast, but as you shift south, we got a lot of different hurricanes that are coming through right now. September's a good time for that, especially, down south coming up the coast and whatnot. So plan those fall food plots with some of those hurricanes sometimes. But like down in the south, like especially Florida, Alabama, Georgia, stuff like that right now. Especially you guys with a lot of clay and sandy soils and whatnot. Buckwheat's a good option right now for in the south. Obviously, you're not going to get flowers and put on buckwheat hulls or buckwheat seed and stuff like that. It's this there as an attractant. It's just going to get up, it's going to get out, be real leafy, and the deer are going to eat that. That's really good to plant in fall food plots in the south. Obviously, your wheat and your rye and your oats. Um, Obviously, all your annual clovers, burst seam clover, Balanza fixation clover, crimson clover. And obviously, don't forget about starting or perennial clover plots too in the fall because they're going to get a lot of moisture. They're going to really set their roots, which is good. And then you have less weed pressure. Temperatures are dropping, so it's not as hot anymore. And then next spring, since the roots are already established, they're going to really put on tonnage right off the get going out and suppress weeds really, really quick. So like white ladino clover, red clover, if you want to put chicory in at that point, um, all your perennial clovers like that. Alfalfa would be another good one too. Probably not so much right now. Alfalfa seems to it's a little stingy with that type of stuff, so plant that stuff in the spring, but we'll get to that at another time. But yeah, I mean I kind of just really just kind of skimmed through this stuff, but yeah, if there's any questions, just please shoot me a message. Um, I could keep talking about this, all the time, but obviously, yeah, brassicas are definitely one of my favorites, and I do like to mix in crimson clover with it because it helps fill the gap. And then there's always something that comes back up in the spring then through winter dormancy that the um, deer and turkey are gonna, like your property a whole lot more because you never clean the table, you never diss the soil, so and you never planted just one crop and then that was it. So like if you planted corn in the summertime and the deer ate all the corn, what's there for them in the spring then? So always think about that. Be diverse with your plantings. Don't just plant brassicas. Don't just plant wheat. Don't just plant clover. Mix something in with it. You're starting your clovers, plant some oats in with it. Um, you're doing your brassicas, mix in the annual clovers in with it, mix your winter rye and your wheat and stuff like that later on. And you can always layer that. You can always keep adding more cereal grains, especially here in the Northeast, all the way up to October. So don't be afraid to add that on to build up tonnage for building up your food plot tonnage, I should say, that the deer and the turkey never go hungry, and that there's always something there for you to hunt over or just attract animals to your property. So um, I believe that's a wrap. But yeah, don't be afraid to you know break out a backpack sprayer, backpack blower, and a spreader and some rakes and stuff like that, and do some hand food plots that way. We used to do that for a very, very long time, but um, just make just keep in the back of your mind about those liquid fertilizers and liquid limes, because that could save multiple trips for you guys going back and forth in the woods. That guys that are just doing stuff, your weekend warriors, and that's all the more time you have. Like I said though, if you're blessed and you got the money one day and you invest in a tractor and you have a no-till drill sometime, that's that really saves a lot of walking back and forth with the backpack sprayer and spreader and stuff like that. So yeah, I think that's all I have now. So
Yeah, that was great, man. I definitely appreciate it. And if anybody has any questions, what we'll do is we'll put the information here in the description, so you can reach out to me or Tyler, and we'll be able to get those questions answered. But this is part three of the series that we've been doing. So there'll definitely be more to come. If you haven't seen the first two, I'll have a link in here also when I put this up tomorrow, for everyone to check out that wasn't able to make it today. But no, that was definitely great, man. And if we have to dive down different rabbit holes, that's something that we'll do for another day. We do that down here. We do the weekend warrior type thing because we really only do food plots for turkeys. So I got a little food plot for my turkeys. I use AccuForage also. First time I used it, I think I mentioned this on the last video we did, but the first time I used it, we didn't get any rain and it didn't do anything. And I'm like, oh man, I done got a dud bag or something. And it ended up being me because I put the next one out. A couple months later, some stuff happened. I was able to, we have a year-round growing season here, so it doesn't really
yep.
matter. So I put it out there and it shot up. I can barely keep it down. The animals can't keep it down. There's quail that have been going to it, dove, rabbits, turkey, other different birds, that are local to the area. But it's been great. I try not to cut it. I try to listen to what you said about trying not to cut things all the time. So I do resist the urge to whack it down. But it's definitely produced. I don't know if I can 100%. I don't have the data to back it up yet. I'll have more of it probably next season, but our quail population is pretty much was non-existent before we started doing this. And now we have a decent quail population. I actually talked to the neighbor that owns a adjoining property and was talking to him about it. He's like, yeah, he's like, I sit out on my porch and he's like, I see them all over the place and I used to never see them. So whether it's that or it just luck of the draw, or maybe they got pushed. There's a lot of developing, so maybe they got pushed from somewhere else. I'm not sure, but they enjoy eating it, and I'll sit there and watch them work through it, and whistle and all that stuff, and it's really cool, coming from someone that never really did much upland bird hunting to potentially have a good future of doing that, down the road once we get, the numbers up a little bit more.
It's really awesome to hear that.
Um,
Me and my wife are trying to restore bobwhite populations here in Pennsylvania with doing a flight pen out at my grandmother's farm. We raise them here at our house and bring them out to the flight pen and let them out there for about 2 months and let them get adjusted to the habitat that's there. And I've been working on some food plots there for them with some smaller seeds and stuff like that in them so they can eat that through the winter and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a very cool animal to see and hear, that's for sure.
it definitely is, especially because I've heard about the releasing them and all that stuff, and it's just so crazy because they just came out of nowhere. And the population, I remember I'd see one or two, and I didn't even know what it was when I first saw it. I was actually sitting on the ground turkey hunting, and it walked right up to me. And then I noticed it, and I'm like, that's a quail. And then I started taking good pictures, and then I started getting them on the trail cameras. It was super exciting to see that, and I can't wait to see how it grows. But I do have one question here. So I do have an issue with it growing really tall. I think like right now it's got to be at least like because I mean we don't have the deer to keep it down, So
Hmm.
turkey and stuff can only birds and stuff can only eat so much. But do you what do how do you recommend like I guess manicuring it or maintenance it, or is it good just to let it go?
Oh, geez. Yeah, like for your instance, having the birds like that, that's that's really tough for me to just go say, "Hey, go whack it down." I think if it's you're seeing the results like that and it's maintaining itself, sometimes plants are obviously going to produce seed, they're going to die, they're going to reseed each year after that. So, maybe this planting lasts for, 2 or 3 years, and then you're starting to really see it go downhill, and then you got to restart it again. And that may be what you have to do. But I'd let it play out and just let nature take its course here and, you know, just just observe what type of, wildlife are using it more and more. And maybe as it gets less palatable and it starts dying off, you realize, okay, I'm not seeing the animals like I used to anymore. It's time to replant again. So that would be my recommendation.
And that's kind of what I was thinking in my head was like, why mess with something that's already working? I just looked at it. The only negative I see from it is because it's literally connected to a field that's connected to orange groves, that's connected to other fields. So it's not like, it's any different terrain than anywhere else. But we do have a lot of grass in the field that we don't cut down. We got rid of our hay lease. So we just
Hmm.
kind of just let it do its thing. And I guess the only issue I have with it is the predators, keeping the
Yep.
predators down because there's a lot of, and the bobcats and coyotes will come out during the day because they're just so comfortable being in it.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of guys now, this is kind of going off topic here, the fall food plots a little bit. Um, but a lot of guys, their thing is food plots, food plots, food plots, but you got to work on the habitat around those food plots because, you do create a predator alleyway that way. So those, and I tell you what, people can say what they want, but those, birds of prey, those bobcat, those coyote, those fox, all that, they know where food is at when they start seeing it. They know. They pick up on that stuff really quick. So yeah, work on your habitat. That's the biggest component. Without the habitat, the animals can have all the food in the world, but if they're walking across, an open field or an open, fruit tree grove or whatever to get to your food plot, what's that really serving the wildlife at that point? You know what I mean? Obviously, I
Yeah.
think it's awesome to hear that you're trying to improve it and that you are planting species that get big and tall and whatnot. That obviously if the deer were there, that wouldn't happen, but
Right,
um,
right.
it's still creating cover for them as well. And obviously, you're seeing a bump in population, even if they were pushed in and whatnot, they're still going to rear nests in those areas, and So I would just, yeah, if you have that opportunity, really work on your habitat around your food plots. That's my suggestion.
Okay, nah, duly noted. Like I said, it's definitely something we just were trying to do our part. Mainly for turkey was the main reason because AccuForage has a good reputation of their Grand Slam stuff being good for poult development and growth. So that's kind of the route I was going with it. And then, we got lucky and got a little extra credit with the birds. And then I noticed the doves loved it too. And, no one really dove hunts over there. So that's kind of a win-win there. But yeah, I'll
Absolutely.
definitely keep an eye on it and keep you updated and,
Yeah,
you
please
know,
do.
but well, Tyler, I definitely appreciate you jumping on. Until the next one, my friend, we'll get this recording out for everyone. And if anyone has any questions, I'll shoot them your way.
All righty, sounds good. So, um, I guess I should end this recording then.
Yeah.